What's up guys, my name is Justin Graziano and I'm a product photographer, and in my latest video I brought you guys along a pretty fun shoot where I shot some Harry Potter themed beers, and I thought it'd be pretty fun to break down those edits for you guys, so let's go ahead and get into it. So if you guys are new to this channel and haven't watched any of my previous videos, I like to start my edits in Lightroom where I do my main color adjustments as well as adjusting all the highlights and shadows. And then from there, I like to jump over to Photoshop where the bulk of the editing is done, and that's where the real magic happens. So once I finish all the edits in Lightroom on my main image, I'll go through and I'll paste those same settings onto all the other images in that set so that they all look the same. And once we're done with that, we're gonna go in and hold down the Shift key and select all the images that we want to edit in Photoshop by right-clicking, going to Edit In, and then Open as Layers in Photoshop, which if you haven't guessed yet, this opens all these files into layers in Photoshop. Once my files have opened up into Photoshop, I like to start by reorganizing my layers by placing my base layer on the bottom, which is this file right here. And pretty much what I'll do is I'll go ahead and turn off all my layers, and then I'll work my way back into my edit. We can go ahead and start with this layer right here, which is an exposure of the label. Basically what I did here is I captured one photo of the main scene, and then I took a bounce board to capture the rest of the details in the label. To add this back in, we're gonna add a new layer mask and we're gonna invert it, and then from there we're gonna use the paintbrush so that we can paint it back in and make any adjustments that we may need to. And I thought it might be nice to bring back a little bit more detail on the top side of the typewriter, so let's go ahead and paint that back in. And one thing I just noticed is that we're gonna have to add a bottle cap in back onto the bottle, since I shot these photos after the beer was already poured. I can do that easily by stealing the bottle cap off one of the previous shots that had it, and I'll just go ahead and do that with another layer mask. And now comes the fun part, which is compositing the liquid of the beer. I really wanted the color of this beer to stand out, to be nice and vibrant, and really pop in this photo, so I captured separate photos of the beer to do that. And as you probably find out, my workflow is almost the same as I build out each of these layers. It's adding a lot of layer mask and then brushing back in all the pieces that I want. So first, I'm starting at the bottom of the glass, making sure that the liquid looks nice and vivid. Then I'll work my way up, adding in the head of the beer. Sometimes I combine 2 to 3 different images for this part, just so I can make the beer look as lively and fresh as possible. And a good tool to use if you aren't using it already is the pen tool. It will help you work with a little bit more precision than the brush or some of the auto select tools. So basically, once you've traced out what you need to with the pen tool, what you're gonna go ahead and do is right click, make selection, and then add a layer mask, which clips it automatically out for you. So now that I've went ahead and cut out this part of the beer, we can go ahead and align it to my base layer. And then to place it behind the bottle like it should be, I'm gonna go ahead and turn down the opacity a bit, and then use the pen tool to remove that section of the image. But instead of adding in another layer mask, since I've already done that, I'm just gonna go ahead and fill in this section with a little bit of black to remove it. And then to blend in the bottom half of this layer, we're gonna go ahead and use a soft brush and paint in some black until it starts to look natural. So this is starting to look pretty good to me so far, but I wanna bring a little bit more life to it. So let's go ahead and add a warm highlight to the left side of the bottle. And we can do this by adding a hue and saturation adjustment layer, then select colorize, and then adjust it to a nice warm orange. Then on this adjustment layer, we can paint onto the bottle where you want some warm highlights. And don't worry if you think this is looking crazy, because we're gonna go in later and fine tune it with the pen tool. It's just easier to get a softer edge with a nice large brush. So I'm really liking how this is looking so far. It's starting to add a little bit more warmth to the photo, and it's also separating it from the background a little bit more. The next thing you want to do is add a little bit more environment to this shot. So using the pen tool, we're gonna go ahead and cut out the entire background so that we can replace it with a new one. So for this photo, I found a really nice book of background that kind of reminds me of the floating candles that you see in the dining hall at Hogwarts. So once I placed it into my photo, I'm gonna make a few adjustments by adding a brightness and contrast adjustment layer and just darkening it a bit. And something that I've enjoyed doing to my photos lately is to add in some overlays. So adding in something like a flare or haze, it can do a lot for your photo, like warming them up or cooling them down. And it also adds some extra layer dimension to your photos. So in this case, let's go ahead and add a flare, which will actually complement that warm highlight that we added in earlier. And the final touch that I want to do to this photo is to add in some whimsical sparkles and some floating dust particles as a magic element. I feel like this will really polish off this photo really well. Overall, this is a pretty simple edit. It was combining all the layers that I captured in camera to build out one final image. If you guys haven't checked out the behind the scenes of me taking these photos, please feel free to watch that video next. I'll make sure to link it down in the description below. And as always, if you guys have any questions about this edit, please let me know in the comments below. And if you guys are interested in seeing me shoot and edit a certain kind of product, let me know. I'm always down for a challenge. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.